Well, hello again from here inside St James's Park. Yeah, it's relatively quiet now. It wasn't an hour ago, was it? In fact, it wasn't 30 seconds ago when Bruno Guimaraes walked away with his family there just down below me. He is noisy, Bruno, and he's got every right to be. He make as much noise as he wants after a performance like that, but he wasn't as noisy and as loud as St James's Park was here tonight. I said in the pre-match video that I expected Newcastle to negotiate this second leg, that history told us that on this sort of occasion, those in the stands and those on the pitch, well, they would come together. They did, and they did it way beyond my expectation. This was quite incredible from the off right until the last, and we'll pick through the bones of that. We'll pick through the star players. There's so many contenders again tonight. We'll get to that. But as I've just said, history told us they would win here. I was convinced they would come and do it. Not quite as impressively as they did, by the way, but what recent history also tells us is that the next hurdle, that is the one they've got to overcome. It's all very well and good, and it's great, the fact that they got past Arsenal here tonight the same way they have done on 5 previous occasions since that last domestic trophy in 1955. Well, the next step, that is ending that 70 years, you know, the biblical definition of a lifetime, 70 years and 10 now. Well, if that's a lifetime, this now is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And the reason I say that is, when they went to Wembley 2 years ago against Manchester United, I walked around Trafalgar Square the night before and did a preview video, and I can't believe I said this looking back then. I said that I didn't really think Newcastle would win the following day, and they didn't. I was trying to be honest. I'm going to try and be honest again this time. They will never have a better chance of ending that trophy out. When you see what they did there tonight, 2 years ago in the semi-final against Southampton, even towards the end of that tie, they were living on their nerves. Well, this was nerveless here tonight, and that is what is so impressive about it. All the narrative coming into the game of how anxious everybody was at the passage of 4 weeks, and given what had changed since that brilliant and bold first leg, 2 home defeats since, Arsenal putting 5 past Manchester City, had the tide just turned in their favour. Nerves, well, they were booted into touch as quickly as Newcastle kicked Arsenal into touch as well. There was no notion of that. Right from the off, you knew what way this was going to go. They had the disappointment of that disallowed goal, but did it ever really feel like a massive setback, that it would alter the course of this tie? Eddie Howe promised they would come out on the front foot, and again, we'll get to the team selection, the change in shape, and what message that sent. But whatever Eddie said in that pre-match, whatever he told his players, whatever he promised, whatever he called on you guys to deliver, everything he said and everything we thought it would be, it was fantastic. Apply whatever superlative you want to tonight in terms of the atmosphere and the performance. Everything came together, and that is why Newcastle should go to Wembley in March with far more confidence, by the manner in which they've won, in which they've negotiated these 2 legs. 4-0 against Arsenal, a team who are going for the Premier League, a top team. They look better. Newcastle look better than them. Eddie Howe has done a job on Arsenal. He's done a job on Mikel Arteta over the 2 legs. There was no doubt and no disputing who the worthy, deserved winners were. When that occasion comes round, when they need to rally, when they need to get into them, as the flag asked in the Gallagher end before kick-off, they can do it. That's because they've got top players. And when you boil it down to 11v11 over 90 minutes like this on a patch of grass, have Newcastle not got better players than Arsenal? I think they might just have, and that is why they should go to the final, this time full of confidence. That's why I'll be walking around Trafalgar Square, and I don't care who they're playing. We'll see what shape they get to come that. Fingers crossed, you know, all those big players I talk about. Isak, Gordon, wow, how good were they tonight? Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes, Sven Botman, a little bit of news on why he went off as well. If they're all okay, I'll walk around Trafalgar Square saying I think Newcastle are going to beat whoever they play the following day. That's what nights like tonight instill, that confidence, that belief. They were magnificent. Let's pick over how they did it. Now let's go back to before the game and arriving here at St James's Park. And there'd been the word since Monday that Joe Linton wasn't going to make the game. He, by the way, is going to be out for a period of weeks, not months. It might just be a race against time to make that final in the middle of March. But thankfully the injury isn't as serious. But nonetheless, let's go back to before the game. Joe Linton doesn't make it, and Eddie Howe's selection, having said in the pre-match he was going to be bold, aggressive, on the front foot, he then picks a back 5 for the first time this season, and some of the reaction to that was a little negative. It may have looked like Newcastle were going to set out to protect their advantage, that 2-goal lead from the first leg and try to consolidate. That, by the way, wasn't how it played out at all. But when you looked at the team sheet, that back five, I think it was simply a case of Eddie picking the next best player to come in. If Joe Linton was going to go out, bring in Sven Botman. We've seen recently Joe Willock and Longstaff and others come off the bench, and because they haven't played as much football, they haven't really been at that level in terms of fitness to impact. Well, Sven Botman, he's the one out of all those in reserve from Saturday's game who actually does have that level of fitness, you would think, given the intense period he had following his return. So Botman comes in and Eddie Howe sets up with a 5 at the back. It is a 5 at the back, really. They don't play as if they've got 5 at the back. The players, if they've got 5 up front, the manner in which they start the game, they came out throwing punches. Now, to lose Joe Linton, that's like a heavyweight having his mouth guard removed just before the bell. But as I said, it was Arsenal who were on the ropes during those early exchanges, and didn't that just set the tone inside the stadium? Within 4 minutes, they've had the ball in the back of the net, and that served notice of what Alexander Isak can do to Arsenal, what he did in the first leg. Arsenal don't have an Alexander Isak. They've got Kai Havertz. If you want to boil this tie down to a microcosm, you know, there's lots of different elements to it, but Havertz versus Isak is a pretty good place to start, really. Isak was tremendous again, that threat. It's almost as if Arsenal's defenders have got PTSD from that first leg. You know, he's a threat in behind, but he was when he came short, when he went wide, he goes through. And even though it's a disallowed goal, and in journalism, you know, there's a thing whereby if a goal is disallowed, and this was taught to me years and years ago, well, don't really record it. It didn't happen. It was a disallowed goal. You know, he was offside. But you've got to talk about it. It was just an incredible finish, really, to lift it, the manner in which he did into the top corner there. And what a shame it was ruled out. But at no point did I really think Newcastle would come to regret that, or it would be significant. There was an image started circulating pretty quickly on social media that suggested Isak perhaps wasn't offside, but I never really thought we'd come to revisit that as any sort of controversy, because that was the manner in which they started. Newcastle were going for the kill and Arsenal were killing the clock. It was quite incredible, really. You would have thought it was Newcastle who were chasing that 2-goal deficit, but allied to that, just those little tactical intricacies all over the pitch, which is why I said before, Eddie Howe did a job on Mikel Arteta. Fabian Schär stepping out of that back 5 and following Declan Rice everywhere when he needed a breather, just down below us at one point there. Dan Burn charged fully 50 yards up the field and took the ball off Declan Rice. Eddie Howe was applauding him for that. It was those little instructions that made the difference. Sandro Tonali sacrificed himself at times in terms of sitting on Martin Odegaard for periods. That was all over the pitch. Kieran Trippier, Lewis Hall against Arsenal's wingers as well. But Newcastle are the better team during that opening period, but it was just as Arsenal was starting to come out, to glove up themselves and throw 1 or 2 little punches, that Newcastle were back on the ropes themselves for 30 seconds. Martin Odegaard had a chance that was blocked by Sven Botman. How good was he by the night? And he then gets that opening, and the tie probably does swing on this little 30-second passage. Odegaard at the Gallagher end got the whole gum to aim at, and he hits the outside the post and it goes wide. Well, 30 seconds later, the ball at the other end is in the back of the net. And you can argue Jacob Murphy's chance was harder. Odegaard should have scored. Murphy really should have missed. It's the same combination that gets Alexander Isak clear what had happened for the opening goal. Anthony Gordon, how good was he, by the way? I'm going to keep on saying that. Anthony Gordon puts Isak clear. This time he misses, but still brilliant what he does. Takes it with his left, hits that angle of post and barb, and then the angle that comes to Jacob Murphy. You're thinking there, if you're in the Leazer's end and the pace at which the ball comes to him in that horrible angle, you're probably ducking for cover. Well, it was a horrible, ugly angle, but what followed was a beautiful finish. Murphy just cushioning the ball back at that empty net, kissing the inside of the post, and at 1-0, well, yeah, any website that still had trains, planes and automobiles going to London on that third weekend in March, well, that probably crashed at that point. That was the goal. I think we knew then Arsenal weren't going to come back into it, not just because of the 3-goal advantage, but everything, the manner of the performance. That was Newcastle firmly in control. At no point did they let up. At no point was it in any danger. I'm on the Match Report Live one tonight when you're filing that chunk of words at half time, and you've got to file your intro. You've got to take that view, that opinion long before the full-time whistle. Well, I was pretty confident I was never going to have to go back and rewrite any of that which I'd scribbled during the first half and then into the second half. Newcastle were that good, really. They were better than Arsenal, just as they were in that first leg. So much so, there was a moment in the first half where Bruno, just down on the Milburn stand touchline there, started juggling the ball. You felt like screaming, no, what are you doing? I think Jason Tindall on the touchline as well, I don't think he particularly enjoyed it. Felt a little bit early for that, but didn't that just show the confidence there was running through Newcastle? And that then soon spreading at the stands. That period in the second half where Mikel Arteta, it must be the ball, really was. It was you guys who were having the ball at that point, and you knew then there was no coming back for Arsenal. And the goal which sealed it, made absolutely sure of it, well, that was Anthony Gordon in the 52nd minute. He'd missed a chance early in the second half just before that, where he put one wide, and the nature in which it came about, really, it was just desserts for Arsenal and captured the sort of the shoddiness of their performance. David Raya attempts to play it out from the back against a team who have pressed them from the off. Quite why he was trying that, I don't know. He played a pass with sirens on it, blue lights on it to Declan Rice. That was the green light for Fabian Schär. He steams in, slides, steals the ball from Rice, and Gordon puts it past Raya. That's 2-0. That's 4-0. That's you guys singing about Wembley. And from that point on, it's game over. What happened after that? I'm not actually entirely sure, really. It was all just a little bit of nothing. Arsenal didn't really muster anything by way of a response. There was a little bit after the first goal, just to revisit that. There was a moment which I think probably got missed amid the celebrations. After Murphy's goal, there was a cross came into the 6-yard area. I'm going to mention this guy again, coming back into the team. Sven Botman makes a header. And again, I think it was probably missed, but I deliberately made a note of it, because if Arsenal had gone up to their end and scored immediately, that maybe it might have been different. Botman makes that big header. After that, Martin Dubravka makes a save low down from Leandro Trossard. There's another big block from Dan Burn. How good was he tonight? But that apart, was there ever really a period where you thought Newcastle were back on the ropes? Not at all. And the noise levels that were there, and that euphoria and that emotion that just washed over the stadium in the second half, and it was easy, really, too easy. Arsenal came into this game talking of scoring another 5 like they did at the weekend. Well, they couldn't manage one goal over 3 hours. I'll just revisit that last statement. I say it was easy. It wasn't easy. They just made it look easy. That's how good Newcastle were. And on the subject of how good they were, well, who were the best? Who gets the stars in ascending order? Again, I was tempted to put Eddie Howe on the podium here tonight. I haven't, but I will come back to the manager and why I think this was so significant for him. I'll do that after I've gone through his players. Well, 1 star, that goes to Alexander Isak, and he didn't score tonight, and there's that easy narrative to write, isn't there? You know, you guys don't like it. It's there because he is a top player, about how Arsenal could do with a player like that and how far superior he is to anything they've got in attack. So I'm not putting him on the podium for those reasons, just so I can talk about that. I just thought in that first half, he troubled them so much. If Gabriel and Saliba, if all they've got to worry about every day in training is Kai Havertz, it's little wonder when it comes to a match day against Alexander Isak, they don't look as if they know what to do. They just can't handle him. Those two at the back for Arsenal are good centre-halves. They're a pair of bullies, really. They've got that real physical, imposing presence about them. They don't look like bullies when they play against Alexander Isak. If anything, they're cowering like little children at times. The manner in which he pulls them, like I touched on before, he goes short, he goes in behind, he goes left, he goes right. They just could not live with him. And when you've got a player like that at the top end of the pitch, and while again he didn't score, Isak wasn't his greatest game. No, he was far better in the first leg, but he was still electric. He still plants that seed of doubt and that worry that gets inside the head of the opposition. And what Isak did inside that first half, that set Newcastle on their way to victory, leading that press from the front, coupled with those moments of just fantastic quality. And what a shame he was denied that goal. 2 stars, they go to Sven Botman to come back in, having had that wonderful return, and he was playing on that adrenaline really in the first leg down at Arsenal. Well, he's missed the last 2 games, but he came into that 3-man back line, and not only was he brave and big when he had to be, there was the quality on the ball, and isn't that a reminder of what he brings in that regard? Newcastle at their best, they get the ball from back to front really quickly, and they get the ball to Anthony Gordon when he's in space, Alexander Isak when he's in space. Sven Botman did that a couple of times tonight, and it's hard to separate him from Schär and Trippier and Lewis Hall and Dan Burn as well, and even Martin Dubravka. You know, 2 clean sheets against Arsenal, making saves and collections and crosses when he had to. He also went down quite cannily for a little bit of treatment, which was a return of those dark arts which were first born against Arsenal 2 or 3 years ago. But Sven Botman, out of those at the back, I would have him as my pick. And it was something I touched on actually to break off with Eddie afterwards. I said, necessity is the mother of invention, and without Joe Linton's injury, Newcastle probably wouldn't have played that 5 at the back tonight, but has the 5-2-3 or the 3-4-3, whatever way you want to look at it. Has that given him another option? Well, at times tonight, and Eddie was at pains to stress this, don't think they only do play one way with a 4-3-3. It was just a rigid formation tonight. They do change it up within games, and I think Eddie sometimes feels he doesn't get enough credit for that. I think from the off now, having those 5 at the back, that's certainly another string to the bone, another option to explore, depending on the personnel who are available. But anyway, I digress. We're talking about stars, and the 3, I think you will be in agreement with this. Please do tell me below the line if I'm wrong. But Anthony Gordon, that was at his best of the season. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. He always seems to have a fantastic game against Arsenal. I was talking to some guys before the game, and they were talking about those nerves and that passage of time and how things had changed. I said, yeah, but you've got to look at this in isolation, and on these big nights, the big players always turn up, and Anthony Gordon is a big player, and wow, did he turn up tonight. And the goal as well, that was just reward. And you try to tweet the goal. If you look on my Twitter feed, there is no mention of Anthony Gordon's goal at the time, because the Wi-Fi lagged, and I said there, all websites were crashing when Jacob Murphy got the opener. Well, honestly, actually, physically, it really did happen around the time of Gordon's goal. I dare say that was you guys going into your pocket and confirming those hotels and trains for London on that weekend. But Gordon, he then picks up the scarf as well and waves it above his head, and wasn't that an apt, potentially iconic moment? That is why it really was such a memorable, brilliant night for the ages here. But it's only a semi-final. Now, one player who didn't make the stars there, but I do want to revisit, and I believe he deserves special mention, is Kieran Trippier. I walked up and down this stand on Saturday night after the defeat by Fulham. Instead, I thought it was time to give Kieran Trippier a run in the team. If he is to be, again, the player we know he can be, you've got to play him. You've almost just got to put him in. It was the same with Anthony Gordon at the start of the season when he came back undercooked from the Euros. These good players, you've just got to put them in and let them build to that level. I honestly believe that now has got to be the policy with Trippier. But on that first game back there tonight, when he had every reason to be a little bit off the pace, hasn't been in the team, been behind Tino Livramento, wow, how good was he? And it was a player and his experience and his know-how and his ability that absolutely fitted the occasion, winding Arsenal up just at the right moment when he needed to, taking the sting out of things. The way he talks to his teammates, again, we've got that brilliant vantage from the press box, things you perhaps don't pick up on television, but he talks teammates through the games. And I honestly think now, just leave Trippier in there, let him build that form, that fitness, that confidence. And this is why, while we spoke in January, and I said all along that Almiron and Kelly, the sales, it wasn't about the players who went, it was about not replacing them. I was okay in terms of the business sense and the players going out, because I didn't think they were necessarily contributing massively to the first team. I could see the logic in that. Kieran Trippier and Galatasaray's interest, and by the way, their window, they could still revisit and come for him, doesn't shut for another week. Kieran Trippier can't go anywhere. Absolutely not. That was the case a week ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. He's too good, he's too valuable. You saw there tonight why Howe wants him to stay and why he's got to stay. Not just stay, he's got to play. Now, a couple of little newsy elements to bring you. I touched on earlier. Joe Linton's going to be out for a matter of weeks, not months. But Sven Botman, he went off tonight with a knee complaint. Now, that would be a concern. It didn't sound massively serious, but certainly something we're going to have to chase and we'll know more on as the week goes on. Sandro Tonali as well, a little bit of concern over him. That was nothing more than cramp, Eddie Howe said, and everyone else has come through the game okay. And it is Birmingham down at St Andrews at the weekend. And how do you feel about that one now? It certainly might have a little feel of after the Lord Mayor's show. But Newcastle have done what they had to tonight. And I come back to the point I made at the start. There's the excitement and there's the noise and there's friends and WhatsApp groups talking about getting bottles of wine and going home and rewatching the match again and enjoy it. It's a brilliant night. That's what you're in football for as a fan, as a journalist, to cover these sorts of occasions, to be part of them. It was brilliant. I've got colleagues who are neutrals watching on, sending WhatsApp saying they want cheering Newcastle, clearing balls, taking shots on goal for them. That's what this run in this team has captured the imagination. Just to touch on what I said about Eddie Howe there, he's taken a little bit of flack and a little bit of stick at times, and people come back and then give me a little bit of in return when I when I stick up for him, and I'm not sticking up for him, I'm not going into bat for Steve McLaren here. I got to, after the weekend video, I said, you know, Eddie Howe doesn't deserve criticism. He and the players need help, and someone come back at me with a really strong, quite abusive message. Newcastle are so lucky to have Howe as manager. I've been consistent on that for a while now, and in these situations, again, you know, you use that one-off isolation, the occasion, that 11, his team with all those characteristics, and that was a real Eddie Howe performance there tonight in terms of what he said he was going to do, sending them out on the front foot, aggressive, intensive, passion, quality, everything else. That's the team Howe has built, but he is only doing it with a team. This is the point I've made for a long time now. He's not doing it with his squad. Imagine what Howe could achieve week on week. There wouldn't be 2 defeats out of those 13. It would be 13 wins out of 13 if he actually had the tools and that depth to rotate and to have more quality there. So while he is working with what he is, I think it's a miracle. He's got the team on the verge of the Champions League. He's got the team to a cup final. He's got them into the 4th round of the FA Cup and potentially beyond. So just a little bit of appreciation for the manager too, I think. And on that note, I'll wind up now, just as I give you one last look at St James's, the ground staff get to work down below us there. Thank you so much for watching on the subject of appreciation. Thank you so much for all the views through December and January. I know we're into February now, but it really was the numbers and the interaction was quite incredible. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please hit like, comment, subscribe, as I've said before, and I'll see you at the back end of the week when I'll be back up talking to Eddie Howe, looking ahead to that FA Cup tie down at Birmingham. Before then, my Newcastle Confidential column, that will be live at 5 p.m. tomorrow, Thursday night at Mail Online. I'll post the links across all my usual social platforms. Okay, thank you so much again for watching. Yeah, it's quiet now. It wasn't tonight, and what a brilliant night it was. Okay, good night, guys. Bye-bye.